For our last panel of today, it's been a long day, so for all those people who stuck around with us, thank you so much. We have one of the most exciting spaces in AI, I think probably the most exciting one, which is around AI and biology and drug discovery. Someone we know really well, a good friend of Abacus AI, Willie, is going to be moderating the panel. And we have two CEOs of companies in this space. So very, very warm welcome to all of you all. Willie, go for it.
Yeah. Thanks so much. It's great to be here.
Thanks very much. Welcome everybody to the AI Meets Biology panel. Hoping to have a great discussion on AI, biology, how it relates to drug discovery, protein design, and more. Just as a quick introduction, so my name is Willie Neiswanger. I'm going to be moderating. I'm currently a postdoc at Stanford, where I'm working on statistical machine learning and its application to various sciences. Here with me today are Sean McClain and Serge Biswas. Thanks so much for being here, both of you. Sean McClain is a founder and CEO of AbSci, and Serge Biswas is co-founder and CEO of Nabla Bio. Thanks very much for being here. We're going to have start the discussion with a set of questions here, and just as before, we're hoping to bring in questions from the chat as well. So please feel free to continue to ask questions there, and we'll try to periodically bring in questions from the chat. So just to start off here, I'm going to ask a question, then great to hear back from both of you too. So just as an introduction, can you tell us more about yourself, your company, and the work that it does, and the role of AI or deep learning within your company?
Yeah, great. Well, I guess I can kick it off. So I'm Sean McClain, founder and CEO. Founded AbSci 10 years ago with really the vision to transform how we do drug discovery and biomanufacturing, and ultimately get better drugs to patients at really unprecedented speeds. And we're doing this through merging AI and synthetic biology. And we originally had built this synthetic biology platform that allowed us to screen billions of different protein-based drug candidates, looking at their protein functionality and their manufacturability. And that's the basis for the data that we feed into our deep learning models. And I think for the longest time, the industry has really been hindered by the quality of data and the amount of data to really start to train these models. And ultimately where we want to be is becoming the Google index search of drug discovery and biomanufacturing, where we can take patient samples, be able to predict the target, predict the drug candidate and the associated cell line, all at a click of a button through AI. And we at AbSci, we believe the future is really this convergence of biology and AI within drug discovery. And it's super exciting to see. I mean, there's a lot of exciting companies, popping up, and again, it's I think we're able to do it just due to the data we're starting to curate and the new models that are coming out. And so, yeah, it's a really exciting time to be within the field here.
I'm Serge. Just first want to say thank you for inviting me. Seems really great, and really enjoyed this so far. And just want to say a shout out to Sean. I think his career at AbSci has been pretty amazing, and it's an honor to be able to speak with Sean, and as well as you, Willie. So thank you. So I'm Serge. I'm the co-founder of Nabla Bio. I co-founded it with my wife, Frances Anastasakos. Spinning out work that I worked on as a graduate student in George Church's lab at Harvard. We are an antibody design company, and our core technology is we develop new high throughput experimental technologies and combine that with novel AI approaches to design antibodies that are more manufacturable, safe, and efficacious for patients. And just to articulate the core technical challenges there, an antibody needs to have multiple properties in order to be successful as a drug that impacts patients. So they have to be specific for their target. They can't cause an immune response. They have to have good pharmacokinetics and pharmacodynamics. They have to be manufacturable, formulable, a lot of the things that Sean mentioned. At the end of the day, there's actually not a lot of shots you can take. Once you get into preclinical studies, you can't run tens of thousands of tests in animals and certainly not in humans. And so there's an element of being really smart about the shots you take and having good data efficiency with the models that you're using. And so those are some of the core challenges we're trying to tackle at Nabla.
Sounds great. Thanks both of you for that. So I kind of want to start off with a broad question about sort of the field and the area of AI biology and drug discovery. So it's kind of the question of why now? Okay, so how do you think that, first of all, AI has changed biology and drug or protein or antibody discovery and design within the past 5 years? How do you see this role evolving within the next 5 years? And also, generally, can you comment on why has there been such a surge of interest lately? Why is now the right time to sort of approach these problems in this area?
Yeah, no, great question. So I would say that I think a key catalyst that we've seen is what AlphaFold has done, being able to use AI to predict protein structures. And I think like the whole world realized, oh my gosh, like if DeepMind can do this, be able to predict the protein structure off the amino acid sequence, we can do so much more than that. And that's really just the tip of the iceberg. And I think that that's really spurred on a lot of folks getting into the space and really diving deeper into what we can do. But I think a lot of this was catalyzed from the amazing work that AlphaFold had done, and I think we're just going to continue to see a lot of momentum in the space here.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're still very much in the early stages. And there's a reason why I think drug discovery is called discovery, because it's actually what is used today. It's a practice of discovery. It's not really deliberate design. And simple evidence for that fact is, at least with an antibody drug development, and similar numbers are true for other kinds of drug development, 99% of development programs fail. So it's a lot of guess and check, not a lot of intelligence behind a lot of these processes. I mean, at the end of the day, it's still really impressive what people are able to accomplish, but we are still so far from that goal of being able to design a molecule that works successfully in humans. And as Sean said, AlphaFold was this kind of incredible moment because it showed AI can now get us within experimental precision. And that very much is kind of a 0 to 1 accomplishment that has everybody very excited, including us at Nabla. And I think the other really exciting trend on the biology side is we are increasingly getting good at being able to read and write whatever DNA sequence we want, which means we can build and measure any drug candidate that either our AI models suggest or otherwise. So it is a very sort of unique time. We have sort of these double exponential forces, both on the AI side and also on the biology side.
That's great, thanks. So you both mentioned AlphaFold as a good demonstration. It's sort of like the ability is there, and it's sort of something that people can get around momentum wise. But I'm wondering, do you think that the ability to do what now seems potentially possible was there 5-10 years ago, or are there new developments that you think are particularly allowing the ability now to do what you're hoping to do with your companies? For example, an increase in the ability to get data, increase in purely AI, methodology, or something else. For example, Serge, I think you just mentioned some advances in the bio side.
Yeah, I think certainly 10 years ago, a lot of what we were doing today would have been impossible. I mean, I think deep learning wasn't even really a thing at that point. 5 years ago, just barely, and barely taking a foothold in the world of biology. So certainly on the modeling side, yeah, the world is very different. And then on the biology side, yeah, there have been a number of really important advances in DNA sequencing and DNA synthesis. Again, DNA being the software that we can read and write from, that allows us to probe and measure various biology of interest, that's also undergone some major advances in the last 5 or 10 years that we're taking much better advantage of today.
Yeah, I would say that there's like huge breakthroughs both on like the modeling side as well as like the data that we haven't seen. I mean, going from AlphaFold 1.0 to 2.0, it was the same data. It was just new breakthroughs in the model, and I think like we're going to continue to see that. But I think the key to really seeing like AI applied to drug discovery is all about the data, and that's where we started, was solving the data problem. Being able to in a single experiment within a couple of hours, being able to look at the protein functionality and the manufacturability. That's really like what we are leveraging to ultimately see our fully in silico protein interaction models really coming through, is because we have that throughput of data and the quality of data. And I think we're starting to see that across the board. And then also too, it's getting partners to partners and healthcare in general to understand that the data also has to be curated in a way that you can actually then go back and mine it as well. And so I think the whole industry is like realizing like data is so key to what we're doing, and really leveraging AI within life sciences and healthcare.
I wanted to add to what Sean was saying there as well. I mean, I 100% agree. Data and data quality are king, and probably the most important thing. And I think one of the most interesting applied directions that machine learning can really help with is, in biology, we always have this trade-off where we can generate larger amounts of low quality data or small amounts of higher quality data. And there's a lot of arguments for trying to take advantage of data on the second part, so the lower volume of higher quality data. And I think machine learning algorithms that afford you that data efficiency of being able to learn, for example, from drug candidates directly tested in an animal. You can't do 10,000 such tests. You could do maybe tens or hundreds. And so from an ethical perspective, data efficiency is hugely important in that regime. And it's a very interesting research direction as well.
Very, very cool. And just a little bit down the list, we have some more questions about particulars of methodology to both of you. I'm interested in both of you think are kind of going to be promising factors here. So I'm going to be interested in asking more about data efficiency there. But first of all, I just want to ask, in terms of, there's a question about sort of major successes so far in the area. So we both mentioned AlphaFold, but I just want to know more generally, in your opinion, what have been the most sort of interesting or major successes so far, just in the broad area of protein design, AI-related drug discovery, and could be within your own company that you think is something that's interesting that's been accomplished, or could be other players in the field?
Yeah, I think if I just look at what AI is doing to biology, it's really accelerating our understanding of biology. We only know that like a very small amount of biology, and I think even within our own company, like one of the recent successes we had on a program that we're working on, we actually discovered this new protein that was, if you searched it in Uniprot or any of the databases, it was this protein of unknown function. Well, our AI model was able to predict that it was a chaperone, or a protein that helped make other proteins. And when we put that into our cell line to make this therapeutic protein, we ended up increasing our yields by 2x. And so our AI was able to basically say, hey, this unknown protein is a chaperone, and you should use it to increase overall yields. And so that's just like a small little kind of tidbit or breakthrough that we've seen over the last couple of months here. And I think like we're just going to continue to see that, like what types of structures should we be are really most important for antibody design and drug discovery. I mean, I think that all of this is like we're just accelerating our understanding of biology when we throw, AI on top of that. And I think just broadly, that is so exciting and super important. And some of the things too, we're not going to understand at first, but over time, as we continue to do the research, we're going to understand. But these are huge breakthroughs. We're just going to accelerate the breakthroughs in biology with the integration, which is, I'm couldn't be more excited about.
Yeah, to build on that, I completely agree. AlphaFold was a major breakthrough, but to be clear, I don't think it was a major breakthrough in drug discovery. I think we're still pretty far from that, and I actually don't think that at least yet AI has made a big dent in transforming how we do drug discovery. We're still so early in the process that I'm very optimistic that it will happen, but we have a long way to go. And by the same token, I'm super excited about that because there's so many exciting things to be working on. I really like this framing that this blogger Derek Lowe has, writes a lot about drug discovery, and he talks about how AI can be applied to drug discovery, and at the highest level, sort of the strongest application is AI kind of helps us discover new biology and suggests a new mechanism or target of disease. We're definitely not there yet. The next level down is, okay, AI suggests, okay, here's a brand new molecule that you can use to drug, this new target no one has ever been able to so far. Yeah, still not quite there yet. And we're really at this kind of bottom level, which is this third layer of, okay, there's this existing molecule that people haven't yet thought of applying to X, or maybe something kind of works, and AI helps us get us the rest of the way. So we're kind of somewhere between that last layer and the second one, but there's so much above that left to go. And as Sean has been saying, our ability to generate more interesting kinds of data and improve on the modeling is what's going to allow us to level up, and hopefully in the next 5 or 10 years we'll be there.
Awesome, great answers, and it kind of transitions us into the next question. So I was hoping both of you could describe a little bit more about the more particulars about how you're using AI and potentially deep learning or other methodology in your companies right now. I've heard a little bit, both of you mentioned, using for design. I'm also wondering if you think that there's potential for AI methods to be used in other areas beyond just sort of design. For example, maybe prioritization of resources, incorporation of other types of data, text or vision data, maybe downstream in clinical trials if maybe neither of you are working on that, but maybe it could be valuable to the area. And then conversely, are there areas that you think should remain solely human that you don't really see AI being used in the space?
Yeah, so we're really using AI to be able to predict protein-protein interactions, and the big breakthrough that AlphaFold had was being able to predict the protein structure off the amino acid sequence. Structure is important, but really what's more important for drug discovery is being able to predict those protein-protein interactions, and we have the high throughput affinity data that we're mining to allow us to ultimately get to the point where we can either take a target sequence and predict the best drug candidate for that target, or the other way around, you take an antibody from patient samples and be able to deorphan that to discover brand new targets. And we're really excited with kind of where that's taking us. And sorry, circling back to the last question, I missed that the last piece there.
The last piece was just about do you think that there are parts of this process that should remain solely human, that we really shouldn't be using AI? Maybe if you've tried AI and you just think the capabilities are not there and won't get there in the near future.
Yeah, no, I think that AI, I think, can be used across the board. I still think like you need to always double check the output that AI gives you. But I think like not only in drug discovery, but you can utilize AI in, clinical trial design and getting, the right patient populations and really taking, what we learn in the drug discovery and applying that into the clinical trial design and development. And I think we're going to start to see more and more of that. But I think you can go all the way across from drug discovery to development. And I think, again, AI is going to just have a huge impact across the board here.
I think one of your questions, Willie, was what other areas of biology / drug development can AI be applied to? Is that right?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Beyond just design. Yeah.
Yeah. I think one of the most exciting trends in biology right now is we're getting very good at taking pictures of things. And one of the strongest fields of deep learning is computer vision. So there's a very kind of double why now there as well. So if you look at technologies that allow us to take pictures of protein sequences, full protein structures like cryo-EM, we're getting good at taking microscopy images of tissues and cells, down to images of stuff that's going on inside of cells, like what genes are expressed where. So I think, if you can transform your biology measurement or design problem into a computer vision problem, that's a very sort of exciting direction to be exploring. And some really great companies doing that, like Recursion, In Citro, Path AI. We've seen this now with cryo-EM slowly replacing crystallography. There's a number of really exciting companies starting to take advantage of that data mode for protein design. So yeah.
That's great, thanks. Okay, so next question is along these lines, as to the data that both of your companies primarily focus on. So question is, where does your data primarily come from? What types of data do you primarily work with?
Yeah, so most of our data is all internally generated in our wet lab. It's our synthetic biology technology that allows us to get that screening throughput on, protein, affinities, and we can, again, do this in an extremely high throughput manner, billions of drug candidates in a single day or a single experiment. And that's really what we're using to feed our models. And we do also get patient samples as well that we feed in on some of the antibody information. But that's mainly where we're getting our data. And I think, again, just circling back, data is key to all of this. And like we put a ton of focus on the throughput as well as the quality of this data.
Yeah, I agree again on the data point. For us, we use a combination of, just to back up to, again, one of these exciting trends is we're getting very good at and we have been for a little while, sequencing DNA, which is the instruction set that underlies what allows you to make proteins. And so we have in public databases billions of protein sequences, and these data sources, much like text on the internet, is growing exponentially. So we now have approaches where we're taking large-scale NLP style models, applying them to these types of sequence databases, and then in a semi-supervised way, updating them on proprietary data that we're generating inside Nabla, and using that to do antibody design. And so again, the core challenges here is really just that multi-property optimization for antibodies, as well as achieving data efficiency where it counts most.
Great, thanks. Yeah, so a few AI and machine learning methodologies have been sort of brought up. For example, focus on data efficiency. Serge, you just mentioned using NLP type models for the type of data that you're working with. But just getting into this a little bit more, based on the types of applications that you're working on, what do you think are the sort of most promising methodologies in AI that you think are particularly interesting to sort of that your companies are working on and to develop further? For example, data efficiency, maybe transfer learning, or focus on generalization, maybe work on pre-trained models on large public data sets, or decision making, design, otherwise, that your companies are working on?
Yeah, so no, we're using NLPs, and off of data that we curate off these databases, but then it's trained on that, and then we feed in our additional data to essentially be able to increase our overall predictability coming out of these models. So I think it's a combination of both that we see, and but I think it's very similar sorts of approaches Serge and his team are taking, it sounds like.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Willie, could you just repeat that bit of your question? I think I lost 5 or 10 seconds there.
Sure, no problem. Yeah, so the question was just about which are sort of the AI and machine learning methods that you think are the key ones that you're interested in studying, that you think would lead to the most development for your company.
Yeah, the two most scalable data sources we can tap into are, again, protein sequence data and increasingly protein structure data. So I think a lot of the really exciting advances on the NLP side are of tremendous interest to us, but also increasingly on the 3D structure side. So thinking like architectures like the SE3 transformer, graph neural networks. These are methods that we are pulling in at Nabla and combining along with sequence models, additionally incorporating our own internally generated data and applying these again to solve the key multi-property optimization problems we're interested in for antibody design.
Sounds great. I'm going to take a moment here to kind of ask some questions from the chat. We've got a few built up. So there's a couple here that asked about SARS-CoV-2 drug discovery. So one question is, can AI be helpful or give some breakthrough in SARS-CoV-2 drug discovery process? About the new mutation prediction in COVID-19 surface protein, where in advance we can predict the next possibility of new mutations like Omicron and Delta. Any thoughts about how the work you're doing can be applied to this area?
Yeah, I really like the tail end of the thing you just mentioned, which was the predicting future variants of concern. So there's been some really exciting work done where folks have used sophisticated language models to actually predict mutations to coronavirus that kind of semantically preserve the sequence. And so it should be a functional virus that we are predicting to evolve into that sequence and may become a future variant of interest or variant of concern. And I think some folks have been following up with Omicron to see if these models have predicted this variant in advance. And there's a few other very interesting variants out there that language models are predicting may come online in the future. And one of the cool things as antibody designers is we can preemptively design and stockpile antibodies against those future variants of interest and variants of concern. So this is a really interesting application that's uniquely enabled by deep learning and language models in particular.
Yeah, definitely. And I think also not only on the design front, but also the speed at which we can get out new therapies using AI, I think is also hugely important to highlight here. Just dramatically decreasing the time it takes these new therapies to get to patients. They're better designed, and get to patients a lot faster.
That's great. And here's another question from the chat. This is early, but do you think there will be a regulation mismatch on ML AI powered drug development? We saw this in other fast growing fields that are able to attach to exponential progress.
Sorry, I didn't catch that first part. Is there going to be regulation on it?
Yeah, will there be a regulation mismatch on ML and AI powered drug development?
I don't see there being a lot of, additional regulatory, barriers. I mean, we have the FDA, and I think that, the proof is in the pudding of being able to design, drugs via AI and take them through the clinic and see how they perform. And I think, everyone is expecting better drugs to be designed at quicker speeds, and therefore increase the overall probability of success. But I don't think that there's going to be further regulations on AI drug discovery. Would at least be my prediction on this.
One more question from the chat here. So how will the application of AI to biology change future business models in the pharma and digital health industries?
I think that it's going to illuminate our need to have new business models where AI drug discovery companies can focus on designing the best therapies, and then partnering with large pharma to take it through the clinic and ultimately commercialize it. And I think even outside of AI drug discovery, just drug discovery in general, a lot of it is being outsourced. And I think that being able to get back end economics, milestones, and royalties and share in the upside, but not having to take on the risk of being able to of taking it through the clinic, investing hundreds of millions of dollars. I think it is illuminating for the industry that there's new ways that we can work with pharma and biotech companies and monetize that and kind of create these new business models. So I think it's really exciting where the industry is headed.
Yeah, I'll add to that historically, companies that have articulated value largely based on computational predictions have had a hard time because, frankly, computational predictions haven't been that good, and they're valued as such, right? You show that to a larger pharma partner, the first thing they'll ask you is, okay, where's the data? But now we're getting into this kind of interesting transition period where, again, approaches like AlphaFold 2 are showing that a lot of times machine learning are within experimental precision. And there's actually a number of cases now at Nabla where we have doubted whether our experiment is right. And so our model is telling us one thing, we're getting a different experimental result. We feel, for whatever reason, the model is well calibrated. Which do we trust? And this gets really interesting because now when you're talking to pharma, as the data will show over the next couple of years, if ML predictions are really that good, how you value these predictions and the businesses that make them is going to change. And so I don't know, I'm very excited to see how the next 5 years shapes up.
Sounds great. And kind of what you're touching there at the end, I think relates a little bit to this topic of black box predictions and explainability, which is the next question on our list. So how far do you think drug discovery can go by using deep learning methods involving black box predictions? And do you think there's a risk in using this technology that generates knowledge that isn't able to be sort of interpreted by humans?
It's a really interesting question. I think that it's actually really exciting. Again, we may not understand some of the predictions at the current time, but it allows us to actually probe deeper and figure out, why is it making this prediction? Why does it work? What piece of biology are we not understanding? And I think, again, that's going to lead to new breakthroughs. And I think that I see no issues with the deep learning kind of black box approach. Again, it's we may not understand it now, but it's going to allow us to focus in on those areas to increase our understanding of biology and ultimately drug discovery.
Yeah, I agree with Sean. I'm tremendously optimistic about the use of AI in drug discovery. The one major risk that I see, and we've seen this in other fields of AI, is the bias a lot of these approaches have, particularly biases induced by the data that they're trained on. And so if you are designing antibodies that on, let's say, protein sequence data that's largely been obtained from white people, you're going to end up making racist antibodies. And we need to be very careful and thoughtful about that, making drugs that work for everyone. And we hope our regulatory bodies do a good job of that. For example, you have to make sure a drug is non-immunogenic. and you have to show that in a diversity of people. So hopefully we have those checks in place. But again, the regulatory bodies have never prepared for a situation like this. So we have to be responsible as drug designers in creating these molecules in the first place.
That's great. Thanks both of you for those answers. That's a really good point there at the end. So I think both of you, we've got two sort of, members of industry on this panel. Both of you have also spent time in academia. So one question is, what do you view about the potential sort of progress, in the area of AI applied to biology, drug discovery, et cetera, in academia versus industry? Do you think that there are, particular advantages that you think only can be accomplished from in industry, or do you think there are pros and cons of both?
Yeah, I definitely think the advancements can occur on both sides. You look at a lot of these large tech companies, and they almost they have their own research that almost acts as though it's academia. I mean, DeepMind is a perfect example of that, and I think being able to do research on these new models, I think is a great place, for, academic research. And I think, then taking those and applying them for practical purposes, is great for industry. But I think the innovation can occur on both sides, both on the AI modeling side, but also on the biology side. And I think that there's a place for both. And I truly believe innovation can occur anywhere. It's just allowing the right environment to occur.
Yeah, I agree, and I've thought about this question in the past, and the truth is the data doesn't show a strong direction either way, and so I don't really have a strong opinion. One framing is that maybe academia is more for the basic science work, 0 to 1 proof of concept type stuff, whereas industry is making it work in the real world and scaling that. But we have some pretty good counterexamples on both sides. So for example, DeepMind creating AlphaFold, that was a pretty basic and amazing discovery. And then on the academic side, some of the best COVID antibodies are from academic labs, and they have some of the best data packages and drug profiles that we've seen. So, again, yeah, I agree with Sean. It can come from both areas.
Great. So next question is sort of about ML and AI expertise. So as AI plays a larger role within drug discovery and the drug discovery and medical industry at large, do you think it's important for scientists and other science-related professionals to have a good understanding of how AI and machine learning works?
Absolutely. So, at AbSci, I mean, we have both the wet lab, scientists on the synthetic biology side, but then, we also have our, AI scientists, and it's really important for our AI scientists to actually understand the biology as well, and for our wet lab scientists to understand the type of data that's needed to be generated to feed the models. And so you really have to understand both, but I think it's actually even more important on the AI side that the AI scientists fundamentally understand the biology, the drug discovery. And I think that's a huge issue we're facing as we're scaling and growing is finding that the talent that understands both the AI and as well as the biology behind it. But yeah, I think it's absolutely critical to know both.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm sure Sean will agree that some of the most interesting innovations happen at that intersection. When you understand both sides of it, that's when you actually have some unique insights onto, I'm going to build my experimental system this way, or I'm going to factor in this aspect of how we do the experiments into our modeling paradigm. And those are unique edges that I think hybrid companies have, but also just having that hybrid knowledge. And maybe also another interesting question is how do you foster that bilingualism? And that's kind of interesting too. And we've spent some time at Nabla thinking about this. And on the machine learning side, I like one branch of ML education is here's a smattering of all the techniques, go learn the pros and cons of each. But there's really a couple of really core concepts that you really need to understand in order to understand machine learning well, and similarly on the biology side. And so I think there needs to be a lot more material and education around like distilling what those fundamental concepts are, making sure that if you're not in the ML space, you're a wet lab scientist or vice versa, you have a way of digesting and understanding those concepts and applying them to your work. I think that's also really sort of another interesting problem to think about.
Great. And then related to this sort of interdisciplinary collaboration, especially coming from my side as an academic, mostly in the computer science side, are there things that you two know of that individual contributors outside of your companies, for example, in academia, or maybe people in other companies interested in what you're doing, can do to, for example, contribute or participate or even gain greater literacy in the area? For example, open source projects or initiatives, public data sets, things like this that are trying to foster some sort of collaboration outside the company that you know of?
Yeah, I mean, we're having conversations at AbSci of like what sort of either data or some of our models can we have be open source to have folks understand like what we're doing and help contribute to our overall mission of getting the best drugs to patients at unprecedented speeds. And so I think that there's really interesting ways of doing that. I think we're kind of thinking through what is the best way to do that. But I think it's absolutely essential, especially in this space when you're dealing with both the biology data side as well as the AI ML.
Yeah, and I would just say, Willie, I think the short answer to your question is there is a very strong lacking of these resources in the community. And a lot of what we have done and are doing at Nabla is building these resources for ourselves and just trying to understand what works internally at our company. If it works well, we'd be very excited to share with anybody. I think it's a tremendously important topic to focus on, and it could really unlock a lot of huge problems in biology if we really come together in an interdisciplinary way in understanding these problems.
That's great. Yeah, my personal feeling is I know a number of people in academia who I think would love to participate if they had the ability to learn more and work on something that's been started and exists. So
and I'll also just say, Willie, we haven't done this yet, but it's something we've thought about and maybe potentially interested in is sponsoring academics that are interested in getting involved in this interdisciplinary work. Because there's a lot of interesting projects that I think we could mutually benefit from in that model.
Sounds great. We just have a couple minutes left, so let's ask a final question here from the chat. So the question is, what areas of AI do you think need to be developed further in order to best benefit biology and related areas?
So that's a good Serge, go for it, Serge.
I'll just keep returning to this point about data efficiency. I mean, ideally, as drug developers, we want to be testing a small number of candidates in a really high relevant system, for example, in mice or monkeys, something as close to humans as possible, because one of the big reasons drugs fail is we develop them in these really proxy systems, and by the time they get to humans, they're actually over optimized for success along some proxy dimension and not actually for success in a human. And so to the extent that we develop good capabilities around zero shot or few shot drug design that allows us to test candidates again in very high relevant system, learn from these low end high relevance data points, I think that is a very interesting and practically motivating angle for AI and drug development.
Yeah, and I completely agree with Serge. But I'm going to go back to my point is that I think that there's been a ton of advancements on the model side. I think it comes back down to data, and getting that data at the throughput that's needed, and also the quality. I think that's really where it all comes back to.
Great, thanks both of you. Let me just ask one more quick question before we, or maybe final minute here if we can keep answers concise. Generally speaking, what makes you most excited about this field that makes you want to dedicate at least your current, life to this direction? What can you say to the audience to get them to come join you in this work?
Two things. It comes back down to patients. It's about getting better drugs to patients, increasing the overall success rate through the clinic and getting it to patients at unprecedented speeds. And also from the exciting standpoint of just us being able to understand biology faster than we've ever been able to experience it before. And those are really the outside of the technology, the two reasons why I'm super excited about what I do and why I get up every morning.
Yeah, here. I think that's exactly right. And the other thing I would add to that, at Nabla, we have this saying, design, not discovery. So from a technology perspective, if you're interested in being deliberate about designing biology, not just stumbling into something that works, those are the types of directions we're pushing at Nabla, both on the AI and experimental side. So if that excites you, please reach out.
Great. Thanks to both of you for all the questions. I'll pass this back.
Great. Thank you so much. It's always exciting to speak with startup founders. There's so much to be discovered and figured out. So thank you both for coming, and thank you, Willie, for moderating. And everybody else, thanks for staying on. I know it's been 6 hours. This is probably our longest conference ever. So thank you for coming, and hopefully we'll see you next time, sometime in Q1. And bye.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye.